Welcome to Pittsburgh Sportsline. I know our audience is going to be one of the biggest audiences we've ever had because it's freezing out there. It hasn't quite hit 20 below zero, and these lights are still chilly. You know how they always give me a tan. They're a little bit warm tonight, so it feels great being on studio here. Thanks for watching the show. We appreciate it. I ran into a couple more people I actually ran into a Prudential agent that I worked with years ago. Bob, here's a shout out to you. Joe, Big Joe, here's a shout out to you. Tyler, I can't keep mentioning everybody else, but if I forgot your name, hello. We have a great show. We want to send our sympathy to Mike Brown, Chip Hayner, one of his better friends, and he's been to our show at level 20, and he lost his brother with a serious illness there, and he passed away within 4 months of the diagnosis, and it's just a shame. Our sympathy goes out to Mike and his family. And Chip's back here tonight. We missed him at level 20. We had a great night at level 20 last night. And we start our show. I know we're getting these new people here, Mike, and they don't know that we do What's on Our Mind. So that'll be our first segment. And I have to ask you, Big Mike Butera, what's on your mind?
Well, you know the show is multiplying because in addition to Rick and Loretti from Frankfort, Illinois, and Big Jim in Lawrenceville, I added Little Nicky from Export, Rollo from Columbus, and Epstein's mother over the weekend as viewers of the show. And Chip, with all due respect to your friend, I'm sorry about that. And
Thank you.
It's a hell of a way to start a show, but nonetheless, actually I'm not going to have any levity in my thing this evening because it's kind of irritating, but spring training is not that far away. It's only a few weeks when pitchers and catchers report. And we've already had our first incident of the player, who in this case happens to be Adam Wainwright of the St. Louis Cardinals, informing everybody that he will not negotiate his contract during the course of the season because it upsets him, his family, and his teammates. So I'm trying to put that in proper perspective, and I'm thinking, well, what that actually means is if the front office or somebody says, would like to talk to you about your contract, it obviously must be before a game, during a game, or after a game. Otherwise, how's it going to cause disruption? I mean, does like the whole team have to go into the front office with him? Does his family have to go into the front office with him? Does he have to go into the front office? And the answer is no. Al, aren't there like a slew of agents, which are attorneys, et cetera, that do this, and all the player has to do during the course of the season is either say yes or no. Yes, I accept the offer, or no. How disruptive can that be? Although I can empathize. Every now and then I'll get a call at about 5:45 on a Tuesday afternoon, and it'll be the machine telling me that I can't make this. I've been bumped from the show this evening because Smokin' has one of his...
Hold it, time out. Didn't you get the text I gave you?
Is one of his showing up?
You
because that's
bumped,
when I get bumped.
But then they couldn't make it.
Now
they were in an 18-car accident on Route 88 and 51. Thank you for coming in. But everybody's safe. No fires, no real problem.
Give me this so I can get off.
And now, folks, we have Smokin' Jim Frazier. What's on your mind, Smokin' Jim?
Hey, thanks, Big Mike. What's on my mind is I'm a mobster. I mean, I love mob movies. I tell you what, my favorite gangster movie is probably the John Gotti story, and number 2 has to be The Last Dawn. And I love the Godfather stories, but I hate the new gangster, Lance Armstrong. Hey, listen, who is to say that Lance Armstrong didn't develop cancer because of all the performance-enhancing drugs that he was on? Yeah, the guy's sad right now. He's sad right now because he got caught. You know, and like a true gangster, he used his political influences to spread money around to all the people and agencies who perform the test. That's why he can be so arrogant and brag and come on the air and say, I've always passed the test. Yeah, because he controlled the test. And then he turned from gangster to pimp and went to the pimptress, Oprah Winfrey, and told her what he was going to do, him and his lawyers, for 2.5 hours and what he was going to talk about. So Oprah ended up getting pimped by Lance Armstrong, the new gangster.
This is what you hear, folks. You get insights that no other show that's on sports talks about. There's no way. And I just learned a word. Normally we revisit what somebody says, and I like to throw out a few words once in a while, multi-syllable. I can't even speak, I'm frozen. But what is this? Pinterest? I've heard of temptress. I've heard of other things. Empress. But I don't know what. I can't even say it. Pinterest. Oprah Winfrey. A billionaire. Unbelievable. Okay. Now I got to go to Chip, and I can rename him the Prophet Hainer, because he's on a roll, folks. He was getting beat up like me, who's eating so much humble pie. We'll get into that in a couple minutes. But he picked 2 winners for the Harbaugh Bowl because he was using reverse psychology like all Steeler fans do. So the Prophet Chip Hayner's back in business. Go ahead, buddy.
I got bitten hind end by that one. But just to speak to Jim's point, the Lance Armstrong, apology or whatever, I've never seen anything more disingenuous in my life. And, the funny thing is reports are coming out that Lance Armstrong lied about the fact that he lied about, so we don't really know what the truth is. And, I was reading this article, and they saying how the expert poker players can, look at their opponent to see if they give a tell. And, what the tell is when Lance Armstrong's lying, his mouth is moving. Okay? But
what's really on your mind, Chip? Come on.
What's on my mind tonight? We've talked a lot lately about like the Hall of Fame, because nobody got elected into the Hall of Fame this year with a quote unquote worthy collection of eligible candidates this year for baseball. And in about 10 or 12 days, they're going to announce the people that get elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And one of the Steelers' favorite sons, Jerome Bettis, is up for nomination this year. And, he's the only running back in the nomination. But, I've always wondered, you got guys like Chris Carter. He's caught over 1,000 balls and 130-some touchdowns. You figure, geez, if anybody's got, Hall of Fame credentials, it's him. You look at what Tim Brown did. And, Tim Brown had 1,100 catches on a horrible Oakland Raiders teams. He wasn't playing for the 49ers of the 80s. He played on some really, really bad teams, and he put up some amazing statistics. And I'm, okay, I just don't understand why this guy didn't make the Hall of Fame. And then he opened his mouth. And it's clear to us all why he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame. For whatever reason, Tim Brown has decided to say that in 2002, when the Raiders went to play the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that it was the coach's fault that we lost the football game. He changed the game plan on Friday, 2 days before the game, against the wishes of his entire team. Now, this is what I want to know. Why is this an issue now? Why hasn't nobody ever said anything about this in 10 years? What are you trying to do? You're trying to get elected into the Hall of Fame, and what are you going to do? Piss off everybody that votes for it? It doesn't make sense to me. Tim, keep your mouth shut. Maybe you'll get into Canton. That's what's on my mind, Alan.
Wow. I can't even wait for the revisit. But I'm going to mention 3 syllables, three consonants here in a vowel, or 2 consonants in a vowel, CTE. Okay, and that's what happened to these guys, and we know it. They can only take so many hits to the head. That's not even on my mind, but that's what happened. You needed an answer. I got it for you. 1 too many hits. And some of it's outside of football. But what's on my mind is, if you watch our show at Pittsburgh Sportsline at level 20, Al Levine, the talking machine, tossed around Penguin action, Lance Armstrong, so we beat all those things up. But what's still on my mind is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Here we are, we're dying for hockey, and we get thrown against the Flyers. Now, normally, the Pittsburgh fans are all afraid of playing the Flyers right off the bat. And then the Rangers, because they're the co-favorites out of Vegas, like Big Mike pointed out last week, 8-1. He scooped us on that one. I don't know how he did it, but he did. So in other words, the Penguins come out like a ball of fire. They win the first game with the Flyers. I didn't even hear or see the guy named Max Tao, but I heard one call on him that he was on the ice. And there's a guy they were saying made a big difference last year. And then, You see they beat them, then they go and play the Rangers. Now these two games are on the road. Normally mid-season the fans are all upset. What's going to happen? No problem. They handled the Rangers with no problem whatsoever. It looks like our team. We talked about Tanner Glass, and here's Ashkam's ready to start fighting. They drop the puck and he starts fighting. He went right to the ground. And this Tanner Glass is my new hero. He's our new tough guy, but he has skills. He's a fast player. He can shoot the puck. He can pass. And then we got Suter here. He's winning almost every draw. And when you watch him pull these draws, you know we're going to do well. I stand with that prediction that we will go to the Stanley Cup and we will win it this year. Seeing these first two games, I'm all in. Tomorrow night against Winnipeg, first home game. It should be an awesome game. So let's go Pens. I'm drinking that Kool-Aid. Now we do this segment, folks, called Revisit What's on Our Minds, because we all got questions. I'm going to lead off with that CTE because these guys keep getting hit in the head. And every time that you talk to these players that should know better, all they got to do is, like Chip's saying, don't talk anymore. Please stop it. You already have the stats. You already proved you're a good player. And you should be in there. And that's what happened, I think, Chip.
I don't know. I think the guy just got a little crazy.
That's how he did.
I mean, it's insanity. He said that Bill Callahan was getting back at Al Davis because he hated Al Davis so much that he figured it would hurt Al Davis if he let John Gruden win the Super Bowl. Okay, because Al Davis had just fired John Gruden. I don't know. I mean, Al Davis did some really weird things, okay? I mean, he was as far off the deep end as somebody could be in the last 10 years of his life.
No, his whole career. Can you mention Marcus Allen? Why would you sit a guy with that talent down and beg him to play? He would beg to play and finally just stop. Look at what he did to him.
But I mean,
and he's a Hall of Famer.
We're not talking about a game that was played last week and somebody lost. I mean, we're talking about 10 years ago. I mean, that's almost as bad as John Madden bellyaching about the Immaculate Reception, and that only happened 40 years ago. Some of the old Raiders, those wounds still haven't healed. But I mean, 10 years. What's the purpose? What are you going to do? The guy's gone. He doesn't even coach in the NFL anymore. So what kind of damage are you going to do him? I mean, wasn't he coaching in Nebraska for a while? Then he left there. But he's nowhere. Who cares?
And I'm still on the Lance Armstrong thing with Smoking Jim with what he brought out. These conspiracy theories, they're all over the place. Maybe he did get cancer with all those things, or maybe it was his bicycle seat that caused that cancer. Yeah. He worked out so hard. Look at how they changed the design on bicycle seats. They split that so certain guys don't get injured on that. Maybe he didn't do that. What happened there?
There have been reports that they felt that his problems with cancer could have been directly related to the performance-enhancing drugs that he was ingesting.
Who are these people saying?
I've read articles. I can't give you footnotes and everything like that. But the fact of the matter is, he aggressively pursued anybody that did, and he destroyed people's lives. And now and the part that made me, I actually pulled the garbage can over and heaved when I heard this point when he sat there and he had to stop his little boy from defending him. That guy really broke his heart. I mean, come on. I got no sympathy in my heart for that man. He was an evil, twisted human being, and he manipulated people and did whatever he wanted to get what he wanted. And now, because this whole world's blowing up on him, I'm going to ask, what he's doing the Catholic routine. He's begging for he's got, how many Hail Marys do I have
Here's
to
a
do?
disclaimer on the show. We can't help it. There's evil out there, and whatever he's doing, I don't know what it is. But one of the problems that I do have is, I forgot to watch that show with Oprah. Did any of you guys see the show?
No, I wasn't going to give her I wasn't going to give them the ratings. I think
I'm
I'll
with
read
Chip
about
on
that.
this
I didn't
one.
know where the Oprah Network was.
Neither does Oprah. She ain't it.
Hey, Smoking, I did check. I went through the whole guide. I couldn't find it. I said I wasn't going to watch it anyhow, but you know how when we're flicking on the remote control, I'm terrible. I didn't want to inadvertently, Big Mike, get on that. No. So did you see it?
I don't think so.
No, I would have wasted my time on it. There was no earth-shattering information that was given out there. I mean, he only reported what everybody else has been reporting for years. But you know, he's got a laundry list of lawsuits that are going to get dumped in his lap, and you know, who knows? Maybe he'll end up selling, you know, apples out of a cup with a pencil with Terrell Owens. You know, he's the other one that's drunk. You know,
No, they'll get a reality show.
So
So
who's his former wife? She was a singer, right?
yeah,
Cheryl Crow. He was connected with Cheryl Crow for a while, and
Not with the Black Crows. Just so you know, in case you're researching and smoking, Jim.
Lance Armstrong, you're no longer newsworthy. Push him off to the side.
Anybody else have any questions on this revisit? Big Mike, you know, you look like you're enjoying yourself at that end. Do you have
Well,
any?
I just caught myself in a lie. I
Do you want to apologize?
I'm sorry. I watched the Saturday Night Live spoof of Lance
doesn't count.
Armstrong on
Was it good?
No, it was just as bad as the real thing probably was.
What about the Manti Te'o little skit there?
I haven't-
They
I
had
haven't,
30 seconds of that, I heard.
I just found out that, if correct me, please, but I just found out today, oh yeah, of course you will, that this was all about, or was it all about him trying to get votes for the Heisman? I mean, was that what this
It
whole
almost
thing was?
worked.
Let me tell you something. This is one of the strangest stories that I've ever heard, and it's gone the complete gamut. I've heard reports. They were actually talking on a local sports talk show this week. One of the evenings, that this all happened because he's secretly a homosexual. Okay,
Oh, that's been out a while.
you know, okay, so if he is or if he isn't, who cares? It doesn't matter. He's a football player, you know? I mean, what difference does it make what his preferences are? But I love how people are attacking him. And here's what my thing is about this. I don't know what's more disturbing. Is somebody having an imaginary friend or so, like whatever their sexual proclivity is? You know? I mean, you know, I don't get this. And here's the thing. You know, this thing has been going on since September. Okay? And if he knew that this was a bunch of BS, and he milked it along for all that time, then he's got some type of guilt in this, the same as the person that, you know, perpetrated the hoax against him. I honestly don't believe that people can walk around and he's getting a college education and can be that naive.
Well, most people know that. I'm a card-carrying media member, so I got a media pass. So I guess I'm a reporter.
Okay.
And the first thing that I was always taught is that anytime you have a story, you have to have at least two sources to confirm that story before you can even take it to press. And nobody, and we're talking about major networks, major newspapers, nobody pursued to do a confirmation on this woman or a family or anything else. I mean, that's just irresponsible journalism.
Reporting.
Yeah, because you know what they're trying to do. Because you know the ratings for college football are so bad to start with that they use that trying to get people, suck them in to get the ratings. Because I understand ratings are down, even though popularity of college football is going through the roof, and you know they're filling stadiums and everything. But I mean, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting so sick of watching college football that I didn't even watch the national championship game this year. Wow. You know, I mean, it was on.
He knew who was going to win. That's
the Harbaughs.
Please don't say that, because I watched 2 college football games on tape every day this morning. I watched Elizabeth City versus Prairie View A&M, and believe me, next week I'm going to break a story. There's a little football player for Division II, Elizabeth City. I tell you what, if your football team can get him in the 6th, 7th round, he's going to end up being a superstar in the National Football League.
Take Rainey's place, huh?
He's a defensive player.
Before we get too deep on this stuff, we have our special segment for Smokin' Jim Frazier. It's a fiction and fact from Smokin' Jim's Almanac. I can't wait to hear what's coming out today. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Talking Machine. I appreciate it. I tell you what, we're going to North Hills, Jack McCurry.
Ooh.
Jack McCurry is forever tied to Terry Smith. Jack McCurry for North Hills, a legendary coach, retired after 35 years this year. Terry Smith, who coached the Gateway Gators for 11 years, is moving on to Temple University as a wide receiver coach. But back in 1986, I was just a young pup. I was in the house. Everybody says it was the greatest game of all time. Gateway Gators versus the powerhouse North Hills team in front of 25,000 fans. at Three Rivers Stadium, which is still a record for the WPIL championships. At that time, the week earlier, the number 1 team in the country was in Pensacola, Florida, Emmitt Smith's team, and who was quarterbacked by Roy Jones Jr., 8-time world champions. They lost. North Hills moved up from number 2 to number 1 in the country. Gateway was number 3. And I tell you what a defense. What a great game. Legendary Coach Pete Annamarino on the sideline against a young Jack McCurry. But I tell you what, the difference in the game came down to Gateway's little-known quarterback, senior quarterback Terry Smith, only 5'8" at the time. There was nobody that could stop him. The game was 7-0 Gateway with a minute to go in the game. North Hills came back, scored a touchdown, made it 7-6, and they decided to go for 2. And you talk about some Hail Marys. Coach Anarino was down on his knees, and his son, and I forgot, the running back on that team was my brother. But Gateway's defense stiffened, stopped North Hills, won 7-6, knocked North Hills out of the top spot in USA Today. Of course, the next year, they ended up winning the national championship. But Gateway ended up being number 3 in the nation, according to USA Today, undefeated team. And they went down in history as the greatest game of all time. Jack McCurry and Terry Smith tied to the hip again.
And there you go, folks. That's why there's a lot of popularity with this Fiction and Fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. I appreciate it, too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
now
sir.
we come to my favorite time with Chip, because he calls this useless trivia. Well, it's Chip's trivia time, folks, and it's not useless in my book. I like it, so go ahead.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to, make notice of the passing of 2 of baseball's greats. This past weekend, Earl Weaver, the manager of the Baltimore Orioles through the late 60s and through the 70s, he passed away. And in my mind, the greatest ball player to ever come from Western Pennsylvania passed away, Stan the Man Musial. Stan Musial is an amazing athlete, and more about what he did off the field than on the field. He treated everybody decently. Nobody ever had a bad word to say about him. And just to give an idea of how good of a ball player Stan Musial is, baseball's been around 130, 140 years. He ended up, right now as he sits, he's the number 4 man in total hits in Major League Baseball history. When he retired, he had the most hits of any batter ever in the National League. He ended up with 3,630 hits. Okay, pretty impressive statistics. But he was such a balanced ball player and was so consistent. He had 1,815 hits on the road and 1,815 hits at home. Does that not, okay?
Wow.
That's an amazing feat in of itself. And of his 3,630 hits, 1,377 of them were for extra base hits. He had 725 doubles, 177 triples, and 475 home runs. Another Pittsburgh athlete ended up with 475 home runs, and that was Willie Stargell. His last home run was hit in 1963, his last season he played, off of Johnny Padres, who was a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers at this point. When he retired from baseball, he was number 2 on the hit list. He was passed by 2 men since he's been elected into the Hall of Fame. One of them is the hit king Pete Rose. The other one is the Major League Baseball home run leader, Hank Aaron. And Stan Musial's, because he is the true home run king.
Untainted.
He is the true home run king, period. In his career, he won 3 World Series titles. He won 7 batting titles, with an average of 376 being his best batting average of his career. He did that in 1948, and believe it or not, he didn't win the Triple Crown that year. He had the RBIs, he had hits, he led the league in doubles. He came up shy on the home runs. He had 39 home runs that year.
Chip, I got to interrupt you. You know why he come up short? There was a game that was rained out where he hit a home run.
Really?
Or he would have had 40, so he would have tied That's so
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing stuff with Stan Musial. I used to follow him as a kid with collecting cards and read
So
all that.
couple more
These are
interesting
great.
stats about
What
him.
more? What more do you
One
have?
more. Okay, of the times,
Give us more.
He had a 22-year baseball career. In 14 of those years, he ended up in the top 10 for the league MVP. He won three
MVPs.
league MVPs. Was it? Okay, yeah, he won 3 MVPs in the top 10 14 times. He was the 4th player in baseball history to win 7 batting titles. The company that he kept with the number of batting titles he won, Ty Cobb won 11 batting titles in his baseball career. Rogers Hornsby, 7, and the great Honus Wagner had 7 as well. So, the passing of Stan Musial, certainly an icon from Donora, PA, lived his life with grace and dignity, and, he passed. Baseball will sorely miss him, but if you ever get a chance, do some research on him. Look up some old footage. You will see one of the most amazing batting stances and batting swings ever. And, he was the picture of consistency.
Well, the thing that impresses me the most, and I mentioned it last night at the Level 20 Lounge, was that Stan Musial, Stan the Man, married his high school sweetheart, and up until last year, they stayed married 72 years until she passed away.
That's another
last year.
accomplishment.
That's amazing, man.
Big
That's
Mike,
amazing.
you're right behind him right now, buddy.
She passed away in May, so it was only 7-8 months later when what did he died of natural causes? I don't know what she died of, but as you
they said in the last years of his life that he had been afflicted with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But the Lord gave him 92 good years.
He never struck out more than 55 times in a season.
Really?
Yeah, and some guys do that in a game today.
And guess who called him? Guess who called him one of the greatest ball players? Ty Cobb, who was one of the meanest guys ever, called Stan the Man one of the greatest baseball players alive.
Top Cobb would have thought of Barry Bonds.
I got.
He'd have spiked him. He'd have spiked him, no
Jim,
problem.
I'm going to keep on the air and not answer that question for you, okay?
He was from Georgia.
Those are different times.
He was from Georgia in a whole different era. He was known to run up into the stands. But let's move a little forward on this. We have our NFL segment here, and as the Al Levine, the talking machine, I got to eat that humble pie. I got to eat crow. This is one of my worst. I think I picked one winner out of 6 games. And I definitely picked against the Harbaughs. If you want to listen to what we said at the Pittsburgh Sportsline at Level 20, that shows up on YouTube right now. So don't be afraid to look for it and go check it out. So you'll hear some of these same comments. But, hey, we're all sports guys, and not everybody was there at the lounge last night. It was too cold for most people to come out. But anyhow, this Harbaugh Bowl, it's bothering me, Smoking Jim and Chip. Chip went out on a limb. Did something, he was just kidding around, and it come true.
And it's the worst of all possible worlds. But you look at it, and both teams are deserving, and personal feelings aside amongst the head coaches, the Ray Lewis story in the Baltimore end, it's a great feel-good story. Just, I don't want to see Ray cry anymore. It's not really flattering, okay? Win the game, and like I said, go back to behind the desk at ESPN, and we'll see you there, Ray.
He will be.
But, you look at the way these teams played, I tell you what, and I hate to say anything positive about Jim Harbaugh, because I personally don't care for the guy, but he's a great coach. Anywhere he's coached, success has followed. He turned around the Stanford program. They have been to 3 consecutive BCS bowls with the talent that he stockpiled there. Look what he's done in San Francisco in 2 years. He's to the NFC Championship game twice. Now he's on his way to the Super Bowl. But his real masterstroke of genius was to bench Alex Smith and put in Colin Kaepernick. And, who ever heard of Colin Kaepernick,
Smoking Jim did. If you watch that show, he'll tell you.
Yeah, and I trust Jim's opinion. He evaluates more talent than I do.
Please cut all this here, folks.
No, but
Still a family show, Chipper.
In his job as a scout, But
I thought as a model expert, and I don't mean car models.
But you know, I mean, you look at what did Colin Kaepernick do in the first playoff game? Rushes for 180 yards, and then you sit there and say, well, running quarterbacks, they're never going to cut it. And then what's he do? Last week, he beats the Falcons as a pocket passer.
Yeah.
So I mean, what can he do? I mean, what's he going to do at the Super Bowl? Sell popcorn in the stands at halftime? I mean, the kid's just an amazing athlete.
Smoking Jim, you might as well repeat those insights you gave last night because these listeners are hearing it live. Matter of fact, Chief, since you're one of our biggest fans here in Pittsburgh, I know you're going to have to hear this again, Chief, but it's good stuff coming from Smoking Jim. Thanks for being at the show, Chief.
And this is for Chief and Lieutenant Michael Vint, another one of our great fans. But, I'm like Chip says, I'm an NFL scout. And in my scouting report a year ago, my top two quarterbacks was Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick. But what I'm going to also drop on you guys is something that I predicted a few years back, and it's coming true, so I'll share it with you and the fans. I predicted the rise of the black quarterbacks for this reason. 7-on-7, when they started that in the high school level. Now you have these black quarterbacks who are very athletic and only runners. Now you don't have to have big money to go to Peyton Manning's quarterback camp, Nike's quarterback camp, go all around the country. Now you have these kids from, say, Clareton High School, which they ought to blow Clareton up.
Why you keep picking on Clareton?
But you have these kids that can play 7-on-7 at Pitt, locally, all summer long, and now you don't run on 7-on-7, you work on your passing skills. And that's what you're starting to see. You're starting to see the evolution of the black quarterback, not the evolution of the black coach or the evolution of the black offensive coordinators, but you're starting to see the evolution of the black quarterbacks because now they're not just running quarterbacks. Now they have the ability to throw down the field, and you're starting to see more and more of them in college. And I always said that the worst thing that the National Football League did was cancel NFL Europe, because NFL Europe gave an opportunity to a lot of white quarterbacks who really didn't get a chance to really develop in college, because college was going to more of a running quarterback, and NFL Europe was developing these quarterbacks, and they was coming in and doing well in the National Football League. So get ready. Move over, Doug Williams. My prediction is not till next week, but Colin Kaepernick could be the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl since Doug Williams.
Wow.
I like the way you described that. It was pretty black and white.
Thank you. Thanks, Big Mike.
Now on a serious note.
That was serious, and I have a question.
Thank you, sir.
One of our newest listeners, little Nicky from Export, I sat and watched an NFL game with him on Sunday. It was the Baltimore Ravens game. Baltimore Ravens and the New England Pats, right?
Yes, sir.
I really, really tried hard to find the statistics of that game before I showed up tonight so I know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to ask you guys because I don't know what I'm talking about. All I remember from that game is each side of the ball, each offensive team in the shotgun throwing the ball. 1 or 2 rushing attempts. How did it break out to you guys?
Well, I mean, watching the game, I think what Baltimore ultimately ended up doing was they were a much more physical team than New England was. New England has this flash and dash offense, top scoring offense, and they have a great passing offense. And what they were doing to New England's receivers was they were chucking them at the line, so they were throwing off their timing. And, there really wasn't much for them to run. Now, I noticed this kid from Baltimore, his name's Pierce, and I don't know
Bernard,
where.
Temple.
Yeah, and I want to tell you what, I don't know what it is about this kid, but opposing defenses are having a hell of a time tackling this kid. He just, Ray Rice is Ray Rice. Ray Rice is always going to make plays, but they've got him in there to spell Ray Rice, and they don't lose anything. And that's really, that's what opened up the deep game, and that's why Joe Flacco's throwing 3 touchdown passes in the second half. And all his touchdown passes are all big plays.
Yeah.
He's throwing a deep ball, and every time I see these plays, the defenders are falling down, and his receivers are standing there, boom, and they catch the ball.
He got one of the best deep balls in the NFL. That's Smoking Jim's mentioned that before.
And just real quick, Chip, something that we both failed to mention is when we give credit to Jim Harbaugh, who is, in my opinion, I've been saying, is the best coach in the National Football League until next year when the genius Bruce Arians rip up the league with Arizona. But don't forget his older brother, John, did a ballsy move when he fired the offensive coordinator late in the season and promoted a black quarterback coach, Jim Caldwell, to
former head coach of the Indianapolis Colts,
for offensive coordinator. And Jim is more famous for tanking it last year in Indianapolis so that they could get Andrew Luck.
It all paid out very well for him. When you look at that, follow the money, right? Just follow that money.
The one issue that we haven't talked about yet happened in Sunday night's game. You know, and Tom Brady went and kicked Ed Reed. Okay, and if you saw that play,
no, he tried to protect himself.
That was not an accident. Just like Nottingham Sue kicking somebody in the, you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, there's no flag thrown.
Well, who did it? That's why.
You're
answering your own questions.
That to me should have been an automatic personal foul. They should have penalized him 15 yards. And but it's the double standard that we have around here.
That was the Ty Cobb high spikes play. I saw
nice baseball metaphor,
once his
Big
leg
Mike.
made contact with Ed Reed, you saw him go like this at the end and kick his leg out. Come on,
Well, he was going to give him a headshot. Ed Reed was going right after
Here's
him.
what the point was: the Ravens were beating up the Patriots, and they were getting frustrated. I mean, they went into New England's home, and they basically punched him in the mouth and kept punching him in the mouth because nobody stopped them.
Hey, while we're talking about flags, explain to me how you define or how you do, as a referee, how you define or how you determine pass interference, because you mentioned the chuck. Isn't that within the first 5 yards?
Sure.
And then as I'm watching these guys go down the field, I mean, they're just intertwined the entire way. When's it pass interference and when isn't it?
They've made the rules so difficult to interpret that the refs they would rather not make a call and then have the call reversed on replay than to make the wrong call. I mean, but the rules are because they have lawyers make the rules up, and and one rule is probably 4 pages of paper, and it's too much. They have to make I mean, you see the contact all the time. Well, that contact was incidental, and then when you've got a guy in a headlock and you're bulldogging him into the ground and he can't catch the ball, then that's deliberate. Okay, I mean, what is it? I mean, either contact is. They
beyond the 5 yards
overcomplicated the game,
Exactly.
and look what they've done to the game. I mean, used to be in the playoffs, you wouldn't see scores being run up. You'd see the defenses would come to play. And look what they've done to the NFL, man. Every game, it's up and down the field. You're seeing 50, 60, 70 points scored in playoff games. What happened to defense? And I see some poorest tackling that I've ever seen.
Hey, here's a little tidbit of trivia you guys may enjoy. I heard it on TV, but they didn't mention the teams. They says year.
What show was that?
On the championship game. What was it? Baltimore versus the Ray Lewis Bowl. Baltimore versus.
You didn't mention it till now. I was trying to be your straight guy for you.
Baltimore versus New England. They said it was the first time that 2 teams met in the championship game in the same venue since 78 and 79. Do you guys know?
Yeah, the Houston Oilers.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Dan
they never mentioned
Pastorini
that's it. And they never said it on TV. I said, man, they won't give the Steelers no credit.
And that was the year that what was it? Mike Renfro. That guy. He was out of bounds. Where was the instant replay then? Old bum Phillips, he's still crying about that one.
That's why they come up with that stuff. Hey, we covered this NFL, and we did get to mention Ray Lewis a little bit. But I want to give a shout-out to, we had 2 great hosts from Waynesburg College. We had Megan Bales, and we had Rose Huey. They're associate producers of a special show, sports show that they do. They do that every week. And they interview players and everything. They knew about sports. It was great. So I give a shout out to Megan and Rose. And they were asking me what I meant about the bionic arm on Ray Lewis. So I figured I'd at least touch on that, since I enjoy a little humor, since he is going to be in the Super Bowl. And he does cry a lot now, which I find unusual, but I guess that happens at times. You know, he survived a lot. And that was the thing with that bionic arm. He does club a lot of people, and, you know, he is pretty strong, even though he lost that 2 steps, I think. But he did have 45 tackles. So, Smoking Jim, your hero can still be your hero.
Well,
and good luck to you in the Super Bowl, because I got a little birdies talking to me that you're not picking Ray to win the Super Bowl.
Well, you know what?
So,
you know what?
I had to get that out officially.
But you know, the big story that I was reading about in the paper today that came out of that game was not had anything to do with any of the players. It had to do with one of the players' wives. And Wes Welker's wife tweeted after the game, you know, because everybody's singing the praises of Ray Lewis. She went ahead and mentioned the fact that he happened to be the father to 6 children from 4 different wives, and she further disparaged him about the incident that he was involved in, and ultimately, you know, he pled guilty to obstruction of justice and walked away from the murder charge. You know, and then all of a sudden she had to apologize because, you know, last year it was Giselle,
right?
Throwing the rest of the team under the bus because, you know, they didn't catch every pass that Tom threw. Now it's, you know, ball players, please, you know, let your wives keep their opinions at home, okay? They don't need to be tweeted. They don't need to become stories because it's been a really slow sports week.
And I love Wes Walker. And let me correct his wife. First of all, he didn't have 4 different wives. Ray Lewis got 6 kids from 4 different women. You save a lot more money that way.
There. Now we cleared that. Let's move on. I was going to talk a little bit about baseball, but we covered. Okay, Chip under popular demand. We're going to leave on that happy note. Just women, no wives, whatever. And he's going to see his son play in Florida or Miami or wherever.
But speaking about baseball, you know, the Pirates are making some moves. And, you know, they're doing some things to try to bolster their pitching staff. And one of the things they did was they re-signed Jeff Karstens last week.
Wasn't he in the doghouse?
Well, not really. I mean,
didn't he speak out and they thought that was bad and they didn't let him pitch for a game or something? No, that was a different guy.
No, they had nothing to do with Jeff Karstens. I don't really know what they're talking about. But anyhow, so Karstens back in, and what they've done is they've signed Karstens to a $2.5 million contract, and then it's incentive laden, so he'll ultimately end up making less money than he would have made if they had gone through arbitration. But the Pirates had signed Francisco Liriano, or had made an agreement with Francisco Liriano for a 2-year contract. And then all of a sudden he hurt his non-pitching arm. He's a lefty. He hurt his right arm back in his home country. So the deal was on hold. Well, the Pirates have got him agreed to a contract now, and they're going to sign him for 2 years, $12 million. And what the contract is going to be contingent on is if he misses any games because of the injury, then the Pirates don't have to pay him what he signed for. Because, you know,
that's a great contract.
Well, it works because it makes sense to pick him up. There's another quality starting pitcher that, you know, you're looking at him to be an innings eater going into the season. He's another left-handed arm, you know, and I'm telling you what, if you can get a couple of good left-handed starters on your staff, I'm telling you what, you're going to go a long way. It's great to be able to mix it up, you know, because you make the opposing manager have to adjust his lineup. You know, you go righty-lefty, and, you know. So the Pirates are making some moves, and they're making some moves that seem to make sense. I'm looking forward to the season there, Big Mike.
Oh, I say that maybe Francisco Liriano ought to borrow that bubonic arm from Ray Lewis, and that way, whatever, I don't care.
Bubonic, yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
A lot of disease out there. Stay healthy, drink green tea.
Hey,
we're going to move on to Penguins now. Let's do some
May I start?
Yes.
With the Penguins.
Yes.
And actually it's an NHL comment because I think there was a valuable lesson learned about this NHL lockout, not the strike, the lockout. And the lesson is this: it didn't matter. I didn't see one beat skipped of fans clamoring, going back to the games. I'm not just talking Pittsburgh fans. I mean, everybody is just like nothing ever happened. So what's the point? The point is there is no point.
The point is players and owners lost. It didn't matter how it settled out. They actually lost money. Both parties lost money. And then here's the other thing. The venues that they play in What's the maximum seating in any hockey arena?
Under 20K.
They're-
usually.
Okay,
they're
that makes a
19,000 down at, but
Right.
I tell you what, it's hard to gauge things because we live in a hockey hotbed. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're sold out moving forward, and then you can't get tickets to them. There are going to be cities where you're not going to see this kind of turnout. You go to cities
The same
like
ones that went
Phoenix,
into the
you
lockout.
go down
Yes.
to Tampa
The
Bay.
same way, yeah.
You go because hockey is I was looking at a list of the top 20 college hockey teams, and all the top 20 college hockey teams are in the northern Midwest and the northeast of the country, and that's really where your fan base is in hockey. They've expanded way too far out, and you're going to see the teams in maybe even Western Canada, on the West Coast, and in the South. They're because they don't fill their stadiums, and that's what they need to do. And they need the corporate sponsorship. And some of these corporations just aren't going to. But to speak to that, the Penguins came out this past weekend and did exactly what they had to do. It was very important for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Pittsburgh Penguins fan base for them to come out 2-0 after their first two games. All these teams are rusty. Everybody's, and I think one of the smart things that Ray Shero did was picking up that goaltender, Vokun.
Who?
Gesundheit.
Sorry, folks, that's an inside joke.
But,
Not that inside. You guys have watched the
because
show.
here's what's something that's going to be different this year, and we talked about this last spring. I know I talked about it more than once on this show that I felt that the Penguins were burning out Marc-Andre Fleury last year because they kept on running him game in and game out, and he got to the playoffs and the tank was completely empty. He didn't have anything left.
Sure.
So now the backup goalie, what's his name? Okay, he's probably going to play 20 of the regular season.
They said
games.
he's going to do 20.
Because that's they identified that problem with Marc-Andre Fleury as being something that contributed to their demise last year. Of course,
and lack of defense because they were just playing offense. So, I mean, that was part of it.
Well,
they did make a few changes
but
there.
the only problem about the offense that they were playing last year is they were forgetting to put the puck in the net. And, I think the thing that made it so interesting is that Evgeny Malkin had 4 assists in the first 2 games. But, the Penguins stars haven't started scoring yet, James Neal is on fire, and I predict that James Neal will be the top goal scorer in the league. He's probably not going to win.
50?
I don't think he's going to get the trophy for scoring, but he'll score the most goals. I think you're going to see Crosby or Malkin up there for the scoring title this year, and it's actually going to be fun watching them play. But we've got what 3 or 4 games a week. I mean, they play 2.
They have 6 more
back
to back. Chip, they got 6 more back-to-back games throughout the season. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting. Like you had the 2 nights in a row, you'll have that 6 more times.
But you've got an experienced backup goaltender that you can plug in there instead of somebody that you're bringing up from the AHL.
I forget who it is, but we'll move on with that because these guys are getting too crazy. I always like to talk a little college basketball, Pitt basketball. They're 15-4. I don't know much about the team. I watched them. I watch them win a game. I watch them lose 2. I watch them win a game. And they're 15-4. So I don't know. I did predict that they'll be in the NCAA tournament because all these other teams, Kentucky, Louisville, everybody's losing.
Well,
so
let me tell you something.
Might be one of those years.
You look at the teams in the top 10, and every one of them are really, really strong. Pitt is on a moderate 2-game winning streak in the Big East. They're playing the Providence Friars tonight. As a matter of fact, they're playing right now. Pitt can get on a little bit of a run because they're playing the 2 worst teams in the Big East this week, today, and I believe this weekend. And these are 2 games that they should win. But I think these are trap games for them,
right?
Because they go play a team. Connecticut is only a couple of years removed from a national championship, even though they have a new coach and new players. But they beat Georgetown, and they beat some really good teams. And they kind of lay eggs against kind of like the Steelers did this past year.
Smoking Jim, do you think they played at the level of their competition, then they can't come back at the end, or what's their issues there? I know you're a basketball guy at times in between those 4-hour sessions of video on football.
Well, one thing about Pitt, we got to give them respect. They are defending national champs, the CBI. and NIT. I respect those as defending.
What did it
national
cost them to get in there?
It was very expensive to the Golden Panthers, but what I always said about Pitt and what always hurts them in the Jamie Dixon era is that, and there was only one Dixon that I have respect for as a coach, and that was his sister, who was a great coach. May she rest in peace. She was an awesome coach. But what they did, what you find out is that they don't recruit enough quality athletes. In basketball, you got to get easy buckets. You got to get easy buckets. You got to be able to press a guy, steal the ball, get some layups, get some easy turnovers. And you look at their teams, you know, that's why each year and every year they get beat by teams, athletic teams like Marquette, that can get the easy buckets and outrun them and out-athletic them. So Pitt, it's going to be a long road for them in the ACC, just like their football team.
Well, I'll tell you what I think problems that everything else would feed off of if they had more aggressive rebounders. You know, I mean, you know, Pitt's a team that can't afford to lose that battle with any of their opponents. They have to win the rebounding game, and they've got to go in with the mindset because everything comes off of that. You know, you start your fast break off of it. I mean, you know, following up missed shots. You know, that's how you get the easy baskets. You know, they don't just fall into your lap. You got to work for them.
That's true. Good point.
And they got to keep playing. That a lot of times you see them standing around there. You know, they assume the one guy's going to grab the ball, and all of a sudden there's a fight for it, and the other guys get an easy basket while we don't.
And not to change the subject, just real quickly, go back to basketball, but Big Mike and Chip and Al, I don't know if you guys see Pitt's football schedule next year. You're talking about home games at Miami.
Yes.
Miami, Florida State, Notre Dame, they may not win a game.
North Carolina, North Carolina's going to be home. But you know what? I mean, what would you rather watch them play? Bethune-Cookman? Or, you know, I would rather
want to
see
see
them
Gardner
play
Webb.
these better teams. You know, because ultimately the only way they're going to get any better is to play top caliber talent.
Hold it. What about Gardner Webb? What are we going to do about that game? It's a classic now. And then what about we won't be in the XY Elemental people?
You know,
Well, we ain't going to play Youngstown State no more. That's done. We're done.
We can't. We
But I
lost.
honestly think that, the football, you know, for football conference, the football money drives these conferences, and that's just the way it is. And that was what led to the downfall of the Big East. You know, they couldn't get, you know, I don't understand why when they did the Big East, they allowed some schools to just be basketball-only schools. I think that degraded the strength of the conference, and, you know, where you get the big money is out of the football programs. And, you know, Pitt, I actually think Pitt and West Virginia got it right. You know, West Virginia went to the Big 12, and, you know, they got a wake-up call because they thought they came out of the gates pretty hot this year, and then they got a little bit of reality served up to them, and they've got some work to do. But I like the mountain that Pitt's got to climb because, you know, I mean, if they do happen to be successful, you're not going to be saying they've beaten up the Little Sisters of the Poor.
I have a major announcement to make, and I'll try to be very, very brief.
No. Take your time. It's major.
This is the last time you'll ever hear me mention Gateway High School ever. I'll never attend another game. I'll never cover another game. Gateway just forced out their greatest alumnus, Terry Smith. Not only was he a great player, the first ever football player to go from Gateway to Penn State. At Penn State, he held for one season until O.J. McDuffie broke the record, the single season touchdown record at Penn State. He did it as a senior at 10 touchdowns. He came back to Gateway, and in 11 years, they've averaged 10 wins a season. They won the conference 11 years in a row, and he's never been beaten in the first round of the playoffs in 11 straight years. Right now, Gateway is #1 in the nation with 55 scholarship athletes presently playing somewhere in college football, and he was forced out. So from now on, you will never hear me mention the word Gateway. From now on, I'm a Bethel Park fan.
Whoa. And that's our high school little segment that I try to do. And now we're going to go to the closing remarks.
Time. Well, where'd you go to school? He's serious.
He's not gonna mention it again.
All right, here,
He's not gonna
Big
mention
Mike, thanks for the test, but I know we'll break them down. We'll break them down sooner or later. There's no doubt because we're relentless. Now we're going to do this segment, so short and sweet, fellas. Any closing remarks that you might have and you want to get out there, if you have any fundraisers, if you're doing anything, if Big Mike, you're in a movie or something, you want to promote that?
And I'm going to predict that the Taka machine predicts a Super Bowl victory by Harbaugh. That's my prediction.
Good move. Smoking Jim, after your big thing with that former school of yours, what do you got left there on the table?
Surprise, surprise, surprise. I tell you what, most NFL scouts Gomer Powell their way through the draft process. But I tell you what, nobody watches more film than me. I watch 2 college games on tape every day, 365 days a year, over 700 games every year. This week, I was sick to my stomach. There's a bowl game nobody ever heard of. I think I'm the only person that watched this game. It's the Raycon Bowl. And I tell you what, the starting quarterback for one of the teams was Sinceri. How in the world can there be any bowl game where Sinceri has not only made the game, but he's the starting quarterback? And again, they were down by 7, and he couldn't come back to win.
Held true to form.
Well, great. Chip, what do you have that you want to bring out here?
Well, here's what I'd like to bring out, and I think we've got another black eye for the NFL coming up this weekend because it's Pro Bowl weekend. And you know what? My wife is one of the few people in the world that actually watched the Pro Bowl. And, I have watched enough poor tackling and showboating through the regular season. I don't need to watch it this weekend. So I think we're going to have another argument for why there shouldn't be a Pro Bowl.
Hey, Chip, I got to agree with you. I haven't watched a Pro Bowl in about 5 years, so I'm right with you. I usually promote a few things. There's this Entrepreneurial Thursdays. You guys should come out. Jessica Lee sings the blues with Mark Strickland. She sings, Jay Willis plays, and Dave Powell. It's a great quartet there. They do a great performance, and you can meet other business people. Big Mike, if you need to get out of the house, $5 to get in there. If your wife's listening, sorry, it's 412-831-3304. You can call the show when we're not here. But that's some of the closing remarks, and I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Matt. I want to thank Devin. I want to thank Aaron. We appreciate everything you do here, and I want to thank Dave Cable, director of Bethel Park TV. They provide this studio and this venue for us, and we are getting a lot of interest out there from other people and places, so we appreciate being out in the community. And if you want to call in, that would be fine. If not, watch us on YouTube. There's a lot of great shows. We have a lot of great guests out there, and you could see with the talk that we have. We don't mind being opinionated. We don't always agree, even though some people think I'm a yes man. I don't know where I'm at on a yes man on that show. I just wanted to bring that point out. That was the guy that brought us all together. Smoking Jim knows that. And if you ever catch Smoking Jim outside of here, he still believes Ray Lewis is one of the greatest linebackers and football players in history, no matter what anybody says. I know he believes it because he keeps telling me that all the time. And he even says it online, folks. Have a great night. Take care. Thanks for watching the show.